Ladies and gentlemen, breaking news. We have a massive rush of a caravan of thousands of migrants entering the southern U.S. border, and they're trying to get in before President-elect Donald Trump takes office. This is a massive update that we have here. We have a lot to talk about today here, guys.
Tonight, hundreds of miles south of the border in Mexico, a caravan of migrants chanting, "We are not criminals," is rushing to make it to the U.S.-Mexico border before the Trump administration is sworn in.
I don't know why mainstream media is trying to hide this from Americans, but we need to get this out here. The United States is looking like we're lobbing missiles over to Russia as a result of President Joe Biden's decision to attempt to stir up World War III. Guys, we have a lot to talk about. Migrants rushing in at the southern border, World War III on the border. If you haven't already, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. We need to go ahead and jump in. Watch this. You can see here, guys, migrants are entering. A caravan of thousands of migrants are rushing toward the U.S.-Mexico border in a bid to enter the country before President-elect Donald Trump takes presidential office in January. Hundreds of thousands. And guys, you know, let Greg Abbott tell it. You know, he's doing his best, but he can't keep all of these migrants from crossing the border. And the fear, the worry, the reason why this is escalating, and I'm pretty sure you guys understand why this is escalating, it is because they know Donald Trump is coming into office. So it's now or never, guys. And you know, we've heard from Tom Homan, who is Donald Trump's border czar, that we need to secure the border.
Place now in this nation where if you want to enforce law, you're a bad guy. And I think the president's been pretty smart about prioritization on this. And look, I'm telling you, you know, if we don't secure the border, I testified about this last time I testified. Yep. If we don't secure the border,
famously
more migrants are going to die. We're going to have more Asian moms and dads in this country.
Wow.
There's no downside in a secure border, but you're not going to have a secure border if you don't have consequences. So, you know, but what's the option? Let me ask you the question, Chris.
You heard it here, guys. Border czar Tom Homan, he said that migrants will die if we don't secure the border.
What's the option? So these people had due process, were ordered removed by an immigration judge because they don't qualify for asylum because they made a fraudulent asylum claim. And like I said, the Remain in Mexico program, once they knew they weren't being released in the United States, they stopped coming. And why is that? If you're really escaping fear and persecution from your home government, you're going to wait in Mexico to escape that fear and persecution. So, you know, what is the option? Go through the whole process, have a federal judge order you deported and not deport them? Because you're never going to fix the southern border that way.
Wow, that's serious. And migrants are rushing to sanctuary cities like New York City. And they're doing this because they know that Trump is about to shut the border down. So a massive group of asylum seekers are all of a sudden surging into the United States at the southern border. Are all of these migrants asylum seekers all of a sudden? I mean, seriously, guys, Trump's new border czar is causing the View host to lose their mind with what he's saying. And I don't know how these ladies are so blind to all of this.
The appointment of Tom Homan today as border czar, and he will be in charge of a mass deportation program, the largest the country has ever seen, they say. And now Stephen Miller, as deputy chief of staff, should let you know that he was absolutely serious. What it means is grandmothers. What it means is brothers and aunts. What it means is abuelos y abuelas. It means dreamers. Those of you who voted for Trump, this is what you wanted. This is what you voted for. You screwed around and you're about to find out.
We screwed around and now we about to find out. Unbelievable. By the way, guys, if you haven't already, please take a second, hit the like button for the video. I totally appreciate you guys. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel.
On this Monday, and one of them has to do with President-elect Donald Trump. We saw in his past administration where he would make news on social media, and that is going to continue on during this administration, already doing so today. I do want to mention and showcase this. This is what I am talking about. So this has to do about his mass deportation plan when it comes to undocumented immigrants here. This is what was...
Two things, guys. Number one, I guess I'm not the only person who was looking at this. I was literally wondering how much this is going to cost. Let's see. Reports are coming in at real Donald Trump administration prepared to declare a national emergency and will use military assets to reverse the Biden invasion through a mass deportation program. But I'm also wondering, like, how much is this going to cost? But the other thing that kind of kills me is, like, they always say, like, undocumented immigrants or something like that. And I'm like, why do y'all say undocumented immigrants? Like, if you're not here legally, it's illegal, right? So let's just call it what it is. Call a spade a spade. If you're here legally, you're an illegal immigrant. I mean, that's just all it is, right? Like, you know, if somebody stole something out of a store, do you have an undocumented product? No, it's theft. It's an illegal theft by taking.
Said where Donald Trump confirmed some of the news reporting that has been in the past, saying, this was from Tom Fitton putting this out, saying reports are that incoming Donald Trump administration prepared to declare a national emergency and will use military assets to reverse the Biden invasion through a mass deportation program. And
I think a better example would be, okay, undocumented immigrants is really illegal immigrants, right? A better comparison would be breaking and entering. If someone broke into somebody's house, they're not an undocumented entrant, right? They're a robber. They're a burglar. It's an illegal activity. So silly.
And Donald Trump replying and putting it out there, confirming it, saying true with some exclamation points here. So we want to continue to talk about this, a major policy, of course, of Donald Trump, what he campaigned on when it was talking about migrants in the United States. So let's bring in our next guest here of this hour. This is from Axios, Steph Kite, Axios politics reporter and immigration expert. Thanks so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox today.
I'm glad they're talking about this because this is not like, I don't see that this is like different from any other crime that's just taking place here in the United States. It's a crime that for whatever reason, the Democrats have decided to kind of ignore for a long time. But like any other crime, you know, if you got caught doing it, you'd probably go to jail or in this case, I guess, deported.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. So let's get right into it here. This is something, of course, that Donald Trump campaigned on, talked about what would happen if he became president. Now we're seeing some of what he is describing as his plans for this administration. Just tell us a little bit about the details of this. Of course, he said during it that he was going to focus the beginning parts on the actual criminal migrants in the country.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that with the second Trump administration, he's going to be, even more aggressive when it comes to cracking down on unauthorized immigrants in the U.S. And he's planning to use all sorts of legal loopholes and options within the federal government to do so. We've heard him talk a lot about using parts of the military to crack down on cartels in Mexico, for example, but also using federal law enforcement agents to expand the number of people who can be involved in these arrest and deportation efforts. Because when it comes to arresting undocumented immigrants and deportation, it requires a lot of logistical planning and it requires a lot of manpower and investment from the federal government. And I've spoken to Trump officials who say that they do have very specific plans to not just involve ICE agents whose job it is to kind of arrest and deport immigrants who are in the country unlawfully, but to also include other federal agents such as DEA agents, potentially the National Guard. So they're going to use as many options as possible to make this happen.
See, that was what I'm really interested in hearing. Number one, I'm curious to know how do you know who is here illegally if they entered illegally and were never, like, you know what I mean? Like, I can understand like asylum seekers caught and released into the United States, but what about all of those people who never actually got registered? You know what I mean? Like, they literally snuck in. How do you know, like, what is the process that they're going to be using to find out? Is it just like when you get pulled, if you happen to get pulled over and you don't have proper paper? Like, how does that work?
And another question that is big and continues to be talked about and remains to be unseen. So we don't, it's just not on the border counties and towns. These migrants are really all across the country. So how would this look as far as from getting them from one place to the next? How would that look like?
Yeah, I mean, again, these are very difficult logistical maneuvers, right? And there's different ways that ICE agents will target immigrants in the country illegally, and some are work site raids, for example. That's something we've seen in the past, where if they have knowledge that there is a company that's employing immigrants who are not in the country lawfully, that can be one target for ICE agents.
Wow, guys. So check this out. So just think about this for a second, right? I'm just thinking, where are, okay, so you have a job site. Let's just say it's a construction site, since they're clearly doing some construction here in the background. They hear about a construction company that hires illegal immigrants. I guess they're just going to, like she said, raid these job sites and validate who is here legally versus who isn't. But here's something that I'm thinking about, and I'm wondering how this is going to affect the U.S. economy. I mean, the reason why prices are as they are is because some of the workers that these companies hire are willing to work for way less wages than a typical American would be, or a standard legal W-2 employee would be paid. Not to mention the taxes that the W-2 employee would have to pay, and of course employer tax, yada yada. My point is this: how much will this impact the price of housing and other things, where these significantly reduced labor workers through illegals, how much will this increase the cost of production of homes, for example? Most people are having a hard time affording a new home today. So if illegals are suddenly, booted out of the, out of the country, and all of a sudden these construction companies are going to have to hire legit, U.S. legal citizens, or at least people who are here in the country legally, even if they're not citizens, how much is that going to increase the cost of housing? You know what I mean? And what will be the punishment for these construction companies? Will Trump's administration shut these construction companies down for hiring or having, if you have more than X number of illegal workers working for your company, you'll be fined or maybe even put out of business. And if that happens, we could significantly see a shortage of housing, further driving up prices beyond, who knows? Pure speculation, though. The internet is melting down as we speak over how the hell does Donald Trump actually think he's going to pull this off? Like, seriously, 20 million people. This is not just a plan. If you think about it, it's like a logistical nightmare. I mean, like, who's doing the math on this thing? I got my calculator out here and I was like, all right, so let's just say 20 million people. Do I have 20? I don't have enough zeros. Okay, 20 million people. 365 days a year, assuming nobody gets any days off. That's 50,794 people a day. Okay. But let's just say Trump doesn't do it in his first year. Let's just say Trump works on it for the next 4 years, right? 365 times 4. All right. That's 1,460 days in a matter of 4 years, right? So if we take 20 million people divided by 1460, that's 13,698 people a day. And this is assuming they hit their daily goal, their daily target, and nobody takes any days off. I'm just wondering, like, I'm not trying to say he can't do it, but has anyone really thought this through? Am I the only one that was wondering about this? Because people are on the internet losing their mind about this. And honestly, I don't blame them. You guys, check this out. Did Trump just add a Tesla Cybertruck to his motorcade?
Sometimes they can, target specific people's homes. This is usually the case when the person in question has, some kind of criminal record. So this could look a lot of different ways. And I will point out that in the past, deportation sounds, can be something that people in the U.S. are supportive of. They feel like immigrants should follow the law in the processes to get here. But the reality of a worksite arrest or at-home arrest is quite hands-on and can be, a disturbing public image at times, especially when you have kids involved or you have parents involved, when you have kids who are U.S. citizens involved. So that is a question, that I have as we move towards this, as this becomes more of a reality. Do we see continued support for these kinds of policies as we've seen during this election cycle? Or do we see a backlash when people realize the reality of what a mass arrest and what mass deportation efforts actually look like? And on the deportation front in particular, I would...
That is concerning, though, when you think about the kids that are involved. I mean, they're innocent parties, They didn't have any control over what their parents did, but that does... that does hit me in the feels for real when you think about the kids involved.
Note that deportation is a very difficult maneuver, that we only have so many planes. Logistically, think about commercial flying, all that goes into traveling across the country, and then add in a international flight, sometimes to very far destinations. Wow. And the fact that these are people who typically are shackled while they're being deported, all of the security required for that. So this is going to be a very difficult lift, requiring a lot of resources, potentially additional resources from Congress. So while Trump is clearly very serious about these proposals, it will take a lot to actually get it done, not to mention cooperation from countries like Venezuela that we've had difficulty with them actually receiving their citizens back.
Wow. And then the other thing I'm thinking is, like, how many of these countries are, well, obviously we're going to have to seal up the borders and make sure that they don't come back in, because you spend all these hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars to get all these folks out of the country. The last thing you want is these people to come back in the country. And it's like, now the whole effort and all the money invested could be wasted.
And tell me a little bit, Steph, about the media perspective and just how much of maybe how hard it will be to maybe report on these almost in real time, because, you figure, you doubt that there would be press releases, come to this area to see a mass arrest. It likely won't come out like that. So how will it be on the media landscape to be reporting on this as it is happening?
It's a good question. And, it'll probably depend on the situation, right? There are some cases where administrations have wanted to showcase these processes as, a reason to deter illegal migration towards the U.S., right? This is sometimes a measure to show that the U.S. is taking this seriously. So I would not be surprised if in some instances the future Trump administration would want some press coverage of events like this. Oftentimes they rely on local press, people who are on the ground where these arrests are taking place. I have had the opportunity to watch deportation flights board and take off from the border. So it is something that you do have select access to, but also given the risks involved, there is limited access there. But, it has been interesting that these policies may be controversial to some, but Trump has been very open about what his plans are when it comes to cracking down on immigration in the U.S. It's been well reported throughout the campaign. We can look back at what he did during the past administration. This isn't an issue that Trump shies away on. It's one that he feels very confident in. So I do think we will have a lot of insight into some of his big border proposals, though, of course, there's always been a little bit of a difficult relationship between the press and, former President Trump, so that could impact things.
Yeah, that is so true, and it'll be interesting to see, again, how it is all going to play out from a campaign-style stump speech to seeing it displayed in real life here. So that will be what a lot of people are going to be looking at, and it should...
Absolutely, and I also am curious to know, you got sanctuary cities. Are you going to have any states that become sanctuary states? What's going to happen with the sanctuary cities that are still protecting these individuals? Will they all flock to those sanctuary cities and make the conditions and situations like exponentially worse, because they're like, oh wow, Trump's going to be in office in the next, couple of months. We got to do something. We can't stay where we're at. We got to go to the safest place within the United States. So what are the sanctuary cities? New York City, Chicago, parts of Colorado. I can't really think of any others off the top of my head, but I'm just thinking about it. And then what's going to happen to the people who live in those cities, the people who live around those cities? How is that going to be managed? Will the federal government override the mayors of these cities, the governors of these states? Like, this is going to become very interesting from multiple fronts, from a logistics standpoint, from the cost perspective. All of the people, all of the participants impacted, not just the immigrants, not just the illegal aliens that are here being deported, but the kids, the people who live in the vicinities, the businesses. I mean, we only talked about the construction companies who may have workers there who are illegal, but how many other companies will also be impacted? This is going to be really interesting, because we've been hearing a lot from Trump about this, but the actual execution piece of it, that's going to be everything. And of course, what kind of exceptions are there going to be?
Should be also noted that the majority of Trump supporters, this is something that they want to see, and they even talked about how high it was on the totem pole for them when it came to the economy and illegal immigration, that this was one of the two factors that they want. That's why they wanted Donald Trump back in office.
Now, what are the benefits? Obviously, there's a lot of benefits. There's always pros and cons to any and all decisions that we make, even in this case. So one of the cons would be, okay, well, the cost of labor is going to go down, or is going to go up, because chances are these companies that were hiring illegals, they're doing it to save money. Get it? I totally get it. It's a business perspective. They want to offer their product at the most competitive rate, and they did this in order to make that happen. So now the cost of production of whatever the good is, or even the service, is going to go up. But the good thing would be, well, if you don't have illegals doing the job, well, guess what? Who's going to do the job now? The only people would be left would be legal people here in America who could do the job, either American citizens or other folks who are here in America legally.
It looks like we may have, let's see, I'm sorry, we lost you there for 1 second.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you good right now.
I was going to add, you're absolutely right that these policies are very popular with Republicans. It's one of the big reasons why Trump felt like he won the election, because he was right on this issue and spoke to the American people. And I would add that it's not just Republicans. And one of the things we've seen over the past year are more independents and even some Democrats raising more concern about the way policies at the border in particular have operated, especially with so many migrants heading towards Democratic-run cities. That has caused a lot of concern with Democratic officials even. So this is an issue that a lot of Americans want to see change on.
Yeah, this is definitely a situation it has a lot of support across all party lines: Republicans, Democrats, liberals, independents. So, anyway, you know what I mean. So, by the way, guys, if you haven't already, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Totally appreciate you guys' support. I want you guys to weigh in on this. Let me know what you guys think about this.